All right. Welcome to a Louis-less edition of the horse racing happy hour. Let me see if I can even do it like a chime thing. That's weird, but that's right. That's all I had. That's all I had. I had 2 water bottles, So yeah, Louis is not here because it is his son's birthday, Thomas's birthday. So happy birthday to Thomas. I do believe that Lou Gehrig's streak has ended because where I miss shows all the time, Louis does not hardly ever miss, and he never wants to miss his Road to the Preakness shows because, I mean, not only does he just love the Road to the Preakness and loves the Preakness itself and his natty bows and all that stuff, but he loves Dan Illman and John Piassek, who joined me today. So, fellas, how's it going?
It's going very, very well, Mike. I'm not surprised, though, that he's off because of his son's birthday. I mean, watching you guys every Thursday has become a guilty pleasure. And for the last 3 weeks, all I've heard is that Tennessee is Brad Cox's Jeff Ruby Stakes horse. And Tennessee is apparently pulling a plow somewhere. He's not running in the Jeff Ruby Stakes. So maybe that's the reason we're not seeing him, a little crow eating.
And that could be it. Louis is doing his show from for ESPN Louisville live from Turfway tomorrow. So he was beating his chest pretty heavily, like, that he broke Brad Cox, that he figured it all out, and then lo and behold, 3-year-old horses are going to do what 3-year-old horses do, I guess.
I guess.
But I think it's a very astute observation. That's kind of like saying, that Shohei Ohtani wasn't betting on sports or something like that, and he's just going to blame it on an interpreter. So
I mean, Shohei Ohtani, have we ever seen a guy bet on sports before? Like, Phil Mickelson has never gambled on a sport before.
Charles Barkley,
never. Michael Jordan was never in Atlantic City. Never.
No, the pure paragon of virtue, these guys. Clearly. And, it's funny because I think it was like Tuesday, the NBA announced that on their league pass, you're going to have like in-game odds and props like on the screen while you watch, and people were saying, boy, this is so bad for sports. The gambling has become so pervasive. It's only a matter of time till there's a big sports betting scandal, and lo and behold, 2 days later, here's one.
And well, I hate to interrupt, but I mean, I know NCAA March Madness is in full swing. Louisville, when did they become a D2 team?
A long time ago. So that was
okay. All right.
I will tell you, I'm one of those Kentucky fans that number one, I am a Kentucky fan that graduated from the University of Louisville, which does happen. Number two, I'm one of the very few Kentucky fans though that wants Louisville to be good because it's way more interesting when and college basketball is just better when Louisville and Indiana are good. So so hopefully they figure it out. This next hire goes really well. I honestly think that Kentucky fans are a little upset that they have not been as good as fans think they should be since for the last several years, and it kind of coincides with Louisville not being good. I mean, when Louisville's good, it pushes Kentucky to be better. It's like it's like a horse race, right?
I kind of have that for the Yankees and the Red Sox because I'm a big Yankees fan, and the Red Sox have been, irrelevant for the last few seasons. And on one hand, you're kind of like, man, it's great. Boston sucks at the bottom of a division. It's awesome. For the small part of you, it's kind of like, it would be nice if there were like Yankee Red Sox games that mattered, because there is an energy to them when both of them are good.
And I've been to a Yankees Red Sox game when they've mattered, and I've been to a Yankees Red Sox game when they don't matter. It's not nearly as much fun when they don't matter.
Not at all. And again, it was like when the old days when Steinbrenner Sr. owned the Yankees, and he and the Mets, were always at it going after free agents, and he had to make the splash. And that's the same thing, I guess, with Louisville and Kentucky. But hey, good luck to you.
Well, I appreciate that. And, I don't have a whole lot of confidence in the Kentucky team right now. So, it is what it is. I wouldn't say the team. It's more on the coaching side, but that's what it is. So my question, I guess, and then we'll get off the baseball thing, is Shohei Ohtani and them firing the interpreter, is that the modern day example of like all of a sudden Sammy Sosa can't speak English in front of
or our oldest Chapman can't speak English? Yes,
right.
After giving up the home run to lose the playoffs. I guess. I mean, I don't know. I mean, isn't that the best job in all of baseball, though, the interpreter? You get to sit on the bench. You go on the road. Yeah.
Right. And these two guys are like best friends too. Like they were friends even beyond just being his interpreter. And he had a chance to be with this marquee team, in chance to go to the World Series, and now he's not.
But he couldn't control his gambling instincts, and that's it.
Yeah.
The question will be: do the Dodgers have enough starting pitching to get them to the World Series? That'll be.
It's a big if. It'll be a lot of 10-8 wins for them, I'm sure.
Well, Yamamoto didn't exactly light things on fire unless he bet against himself the other day.
God, I gotta tell you what. If he was a Yankee or a Met, it would be just like we would be in like DEFCON 5 right now with the New York media.
I mean, you remember Hideki Irabu?
Oh well, I was kind of at the end of him, but I do remember Kei Igawa when he was a Yankee, and that was a train wreck.
Who remembers Kei Igawa?
Kei
Igawa at least pitched through his contract in the minor leagues for 20 years. He still might be there in the clubhouse attendant.
They're still paying him
$15 million. There was a great article about Kei Igawa in the Times where he lived in this giant penthouse in the city, and every day a driver would pick him up and take him down to Scranton, where he would be either pitching that day or just hanging out in the clubhouse, and then they drive him back afterwards.
Can you tell Louis that we're gonna tape this show and it's gonna be now baseball and horse racing together? I mean, he'll never go for it. I'd be all about it. So I don't think it's gonna happen though. All right, we kind of did last week. If you all watched the show, which I know you did because you guys are huge fans of ours, and you're way more into our content than we are into your content. That's not true. That's not true at all.
No, it is true. It is true. I have to admit, it's become a guilty pleasure the last few weeks, and I couldn't
wait, man. Wait.
I couldn't figure out why, and John will know what I'm talking about because it's like listening to Paul O'Neill, broadcast Yankee games.
Right, yeah.
He doesn't really know anything about anything, and he doesn't really give you anything, but he's such a likable dolt that you want to listen to him constantly.
That's me?
Well, both of you guys.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, I mean,
Louis knows a little bit. At the end of the day, though, like it's gonna get off the rails the next couple of weeks. I'm just warning you all right now because we just got sponsored by Manscaped, and
baby,
look at that.
We just got the product in the mail, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this stuff? And so it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, at least Louis doesn't need it on his head.
He does not need it on his head.
No.
So that's for sure. And listen, if Piassek doesn't get a haircut before we get to Baltimore, he might have to hold him down.
Well, the thing is, and my mom might be watching this, so I can say this. I'm going to see my parents over Easter weekend, and I've already set the over/under as to how many comments I'll get about it at like 3 per day, probably something like that. So 12.
Just tell your mom that we'll just cut your hair on the rooftop of Pimlico.
That's great.
I'll tell you what.
That'd be great.
If a Maryland bred makes it to the Preakness, not wins, but makes it to the Preakness, I'll get a haircut.
That's a low bar, right?
Well, there's one in the private terms that we'll get to, and possibly two, I think, who could be Preakness horses, but we'll see. Not necessarily Preakness contenders, but Preakness starters.
You better be careful there because there's always the local runner. He'll run if he's 300 to 1 or not. You might be a bald-headed geek sitting on top of the Pimlico grandstand. So you better be careful with that.
When I say bald, I said just get a haircut. I did not say a length, and I did not specify. I'm on the record as saying a haircut, and it's in our archives now.
Sponsored by Manscaped.
Sponsored by Manscaped, yes.
All right, so we kind of, we did our little, now that the 50-point races are over, just our preview of where the Derby field sits. What say you all? Do you all have maybe a quick top 3 or anything that you want to share on the field? Or it's a very interesting year because I do think it's going to make for a very interesting betting race. And would you rather have it be an interesting betting race, or would you rather have just like some absolute superstar studs out there?
I always prefer it to be a better betting race. I know a lot of the fans want to have the next Secretariat show up and just blow people away, and everyone will get excited. But to me, part of the excitement of the Derby is you get a 20-horse field. The favorite is 5 to 1. You can, poke holes in a horse like that, play with a superfecta, and all of a sudden you're getting a 5-6-figure score if you're lucky. That's to me what the Derby's all about, trying to get big scores in big fields. And that's what racing fans complain about all year, isn't it? Big fields, you get it in the Kentucky Derby. Top 3 again. I like the Japanese horse. Louis put him, number 1 last week. It was a very intelligent opinion. I noticed the name dropped me. He's starting to figure this game out a little bit. Also, Sierra Leone, I think, is very, very good. I think he's going to appreciate the extra distance. I think he's going to really continue to blossom down the line. And as for number 3, I think it's kind of still up in the air, isn't it? I mean, I know everyone loves Dornoch. John, what's wrong with me? Why am I not in love with Dornoch?
Because his big win came on that rail bias track on Cigar Mile Day, and then he beat a watered-down field in the Fountain of Youth, and now all of a sudden he has his reputation, even though he's proved, in my book, less than nothing.
I'm going to throw out a crazy name that no one's been talking about, and I don't even know if he's still around. His name is Liberal Arts, and he ran at Oaklawn last time out, and I think it was a race where it was either at Oaklawn or Fairbanks. I can't remember anymore.
Southwest Stakes last time out.
And he actually made up some late ground in that race. And to me, he looks like the kind of horse that has some experience as a 2-year-old, looks like a horse that wants to go long, has been very patiently handled under the radar. I could see him sort of sneaking into the Derby and maybe livening things up at a big price.
That'd be an interesting play. I mean, I think you know, obviously now with the Arkansas Derby coming up next weekend.
Yep.
You know, and that's going to be a really good field. If he were to have a pretty impressive showing there, you know, who knows, right? You know, so there you go. All right, so keep an eye on Liberal Arts. I love the Airgate play, and we'll see what happens there. So, what about you, Mr. Piassek?
Well, I think Timberlake is going to end up being a Derby favorite, and not without reason. I mean, he really hasn't done anything wrong. He did what he had to do in the Rebel when he won easy. As long as he doesn't totally embarrass himself next time out, he should win. I might have to be suckered into giving Fierceness another chance. Yes, his Holy Ball was not that good, but going in, he just looked so dominant compared to his peers last year. I feel like I can't write him off completely based on one race. If he goes into the Florida Derby and again, at least runs well, I think he'll go off at a bit of an inflated price on Derby Day. And I'll give mine crazy late running Derby long shot. And he is a Mid-Atlantic bred, so I don't want to be accused of Mid-Atlantic bias. I do genuinely like him. But Uncle Heavy, I loved his win in the Withers a lot. I mean, he looks like the kind of horse who's going to love more ground, a kind who could peak at just the right time. I know he had a gap in work tap, however, that is explained away because there was a quarantine on horses coming from Aqueduct to Park, so he was shipped to a off-site farm. Butchery kept him in great shape that whole time. He didn't lose too much training. He's still on track for the Wood, and he just has that vibe of a horse who's going to go off at a big price, and at the very least, mix up the superfecta. And if he swoops them all and wins, I would not be shocked at all, and I might have to have some money on him just in case that happens.
Love it. Uncle Heavy pick. The Wood has not been a very good indicator of Derby success lately, but who knows what. Any stabs you want to take at this Ruby Stakes, even though Louis is going to talk about tomorrow? Have you all looked at that at all? I don't want to drop it on you because we didn't.
Well, I know there is a Maryland bred entered in that race, but he's also entered on Saturday at Laurel. I'm not sure where he's going to go. That is Circle P on the AE list. I will be cheering for him, but it's going to be a tough task breaking from post 12 in your 2-turn debut against these types. I think Endlessly has a big shot, but I can't take a low price in this kind of race. So my top pick probably going to end up being Seize the Gray. He ran a huge figure first off the layoff last time out at Oaklawn Park. Sat the trip, got up to win, showed a bit of guts in the stretch, and won by a length on the Vista scale. Ran a career best figure of 92. And it would be nice, of course, to see Wayne Lucas and Nick Juarez, who I saw back when he was a youngster riding at Monmouth Park, get a Derby shot.
Yes, Wayne Lucas needs a Derby shot for sure. He's
no,
I'm just messing with you. When he won the Oaks a couple years ago, man,
that was pretty cool.
That press conference was an all-timer. It was like airing the grievances and I mean it was everything. He had no holes bars. Like it was I just don't GAF at all, and it was great. It was fantastic, and I think anyone who's ever spent time on the backside and knows how he can be pretty approachable if you catch him at the right time. Mm-hmm. And, I just remember one time just sitting in that, wooded deck area in Churchill Downs, and he comes up and just starts talking to me. And then all of a sudden I notice it's him and Baffert and Ron Moquette, and like we're all just like sitting up there shooting. And I was like, why am I here?
and I think I have to imagine that if Seas to Gray is in the Derby, Wayne is going to make some history as the first great grandparent to train a Derby starter.
Huh? Well, there you go.
Because his grandson Brady had a kid fairly recently, and so I doubt that's ever happened before. So there you go.
All right. Well, I'll be pulling for a Gate Road doing the see if he can pull that off, and we'll see. I mean, it's crazy to think that you got to take the Ruby pretty seriously as a Derby prep, but history tells us you do. So I don't know if that'll hold true this year or not, but I don't know what's going to hold true this year. I really don't. It seems pretty crazy to me. Let's get into our handicapping day there at Laurel Park, though, and get into our late pick 4, starting with race 7, and that is the maiden special weight $47,000 purse for 5.5 furlong sprint. John, we'll start with you because I'm sure you have this field pretty much nailed. So who do you like in this?
First of all, I will say, at least as of time of recording, be sure to bring an umbrella on Saturday. It's supposed to rain all day, so more likely than not, we'll have a sloppy track. And I know Brittany Russell kind of has them surrounded in here. I mean, Brittany having Wellman Fosters in Maryland is a pretty common story. In fact, on Friday, she is debuting a $1.7 million 3-year-old, which is pretty interesting. We'll see how that goes. So horses in here are number 3, Lottie Dino, who started off working at Saratoga last summer, joined Brittany's barn in late December, and has had a pretty steady tab since then. And number 6, get to the story, I'm done, a homebred for the commissioner who was at Palm Beach Downs for a while, came up to Maryland in late February, and has had 3 local works. If I had to pick one of those two, I'd probably pick number 3. She's had a bit more time in Brittany's barn, has a very solid pedigree, half sibling to 4 winners, fairly win early family, but I think she'll be overbet, as Brittany horses are wont to do. So I ended up taking number 2, Hot Dance, on top of the ones with experience. I think she has a best shot. Ran well in her local debut back on February 10th after starting her career at Woodbine. Battled on the pace, held second after a very wide trip behind Reedney 6, who came back to win her next start. Then next time out, lost to a very impressive winner in Stick with the Colors, who is making her second start earlier on Saturday card. Hot Dance has run big figures both times, has a good recent workout since that race. I think if she takes a step forward, either of those well-man figures are going to have to run really big in order to beat her.
And Michael Trombetta is the trainer there for Hot Dance, the number 2 horse, and he's hit the board 40 out of 90 starts. So there you go. Not too bad.
And I can't stress enough that horses that have raced, the experience edge is just tremendous. You very rarely want to take a first-time starter into the teeth of a horse that has shown the ability to run. That being said, both of Brittany's horses are very well bred. The one that John prefers seems a little bit more speed bred, Lottie Dino. This race is at 5.5 furlongs. I have to admit, I guess wrong with Brittany 90% of the time. So let me guess wrong again with the other one. Get to this story, I'm done. You look at his pedigree and you think he wants to go 2 miles. He's by Curlin out of a half-sister to Vino Rosso, who, of course, won the Breeders' Cup Classic. It's the family of Commissioner who won the Pimlico Special and wanted to run all day long. I wonder if maybe a wet track, though, is what this horse wants. His half-brother Delegated wasn't very fast, but at least he won on a wet track. There's pedigree here for a wet track. I'm just curious to see what we get from this horse. If you're looking for a bomb, keep an eye on Bay Street, the horse that's only raced once on the turf. His dam was a multiple stakes winning sprinter. She made her debut on turf, couldn't do anything. Then second out, showed up on dirt and won at a big price. So maybe they'll try to do the same thing with Bay Street. It's an interesting race to kick off the pick 4. I agree with John. I think Hot Dance is a very strong contender. Of the Brittany's, I'll go with the Rapoli one. And maybe that Bay Street livens things up at a price.
All right, and we're going to get to the fillies main event, the Beyond the Wire Stakes. $100,000 race, 1 mile on the dirt. Who's the top filly in this one, John?
Well, I do want to know, we had a bit of a scare this afternoon. We had about a 4-hour quarantine on Parks shippers coming into Maryland. However, that has been lifted as of time of recording. So Park shippers are now welcome. And that's good because there's 2 of them in here. In number 3, Kiss for Luck, and number 4, Eva's Magic, neither of whom I picked on top or like that much in, well, actually, I do like Kiss for Luck a little bit. But anyway,
they had to wear a mask and they got social distance. Is that what's going to happen?
No? No, I think, I mean, I'm not sure what happened. Perhaps we'll find out in the coming days. Anyway, I know Tournament Driver is the chalk, but she's the deserving chalk. I'm not going to try too hard to beat her. She ran very well. First off, a long layoff, 2 starts back on February 9th. Was her first start since the Timonium meet. Beat a pretty nice first level field, kicked away, and won easy with a much improved figure. I'm not quite sure what to make of her last start, to be quite honest. Yes, it was a career top figure, but I do feel like she could have run down Miss Harriet. She had a lot of chances to capture that freewheeling leader. Couldn't quite do it. Ended up losing by 3 parts of length, though, as noted, she did run a career top figure. And Miss Harriet did not exactly flatter her last Saturday when she couldn't make the front in the a cicada and ended up well beaten. That said, it's not that great a field. Think Tournament Driver is going to keep moving forward, third off the layoff. She has very good tactical speed. Forrest Boyce is having a solid meet. I think she'll get the trip, sit on the outside. And as long as she duplicates, I think her last race figure, she'll be tough to hold off on the stretch.
Could it be a single in this sequence here if you're going to bet the sequence?
I kind of think so because, you know, it's a 6-horse field. She'll be the favorite. It's kind of one of those things where you can't spread too much because if you go like 3 or 4 deep and she ends up winning, you feel like kind of a putz. So I think she's kind of a single toss.
All right.
I sort of disagree with John here in that I do like the Parks horses. I think Aoife's Magic is the horse to beat, and I won't be surprised if she actually goes off favored here. She was unbeaten at 2, albeit against Pennsylvania breds, but looked very good in those races. And they tested her in her first start of the year. They ran her in New York against Jody's Pride, who ran second in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, and she was far from embarrassed. It was a really sloppy track, and if you just watch the races that day, and I was at Aqueduct, it seemed like the jockeys were trying to stay well off the rail. And this young rider was down inside with this horse, I think on the deeper footing, still ran on at the end. This time around, I think she's going to be up close to the pace. And she's, I think, a very strong threat dropping in class. She was supplemented to this race. A Kiss for Luck, though, is going to offer a better price for Butch Reed, who trains Uncle Heavy. She's a half-sister to Vequist, who was a champion 2-year-old filly a while back. And if you look at her last couple of races on a sloppy track or wet track, she has really put it all together. She got wired by a stablemate that really got loose on the lead and showed a lot of potential off the layoff last time out at Parks, was trying hard at the end. She's going to need a little bit of pace luck in this race. I'm curious to see if she can run them down as the best price of the big 3, sort of, with Kiss for Luck, Aoife's Magic, and Determined Driver.
All right, we're going to move on to the Private Terms Stakes. Private Terms was quite the horse, by the way. 13 out of 17 starts he won, including the Wood Memorial, which we mentioned earlier in the show. Won the Wood Memorial, the Gotham, the Grade 2 Massachusetts Handicap, the General George, and the Tessio. So very apt, named race here. And we're going to get another one of a great, well, maybe not a great one. I don't know. We're going to get a great showing on Saturday here in the Private Terms. John, who do you like in the Private Terms?
Pick number 1, Copper Tax on top. I think his form has been pretty badly obscured by his last 2 starts. He made his 2-year-old finale in the Remsen back on December 2nd, which, as we noted at the towards the beginning of the show, that's a very well-biased track that day. He was wide every step, really had no chance. Then he was scratched out of the spectacular bid back on January 27th at Laurel in an attempt to stay on the Derby Trail in the Sam Davis at Tampa. Might have been in a hit over his head that day as he once again got caught wide around the turn and proved no factor. Now he comes back to his home base, faces, I think, a lot more realistic field, has a few good workouts under his belt. He's already won over this track. He's won around 2 turns. He ran some huge figures last year. I think the drop in class is going to better fit him big time. And as I also noted at the top of the show, there's 3 Maryland breds in the field total. 2 in particular I'm really interested in. One is number 6, Celtic Contender, a homebred for Fred Lewis, and also Maryland sired by Northview Stallion Irish Warcry, who of course was a Jersey bred Derby starter. This one stretched out to a mile last time out, ran a gigantic race, stalked the pace, kicked away, won by 10, and ran a huge figure that day, earned a 94 on the Brisnet scale, right around where he needs to be to win a stakes, and he did that in, it was a maiden claimer on paper, however, he was not in for the tag. Celtic Cadia's Dam was a stakes winner going 2 turns, so I think the extra distance should not be a problem. And of course, Irish Warcry, a multiple grade stakes winner around 2 turns. I am really excited to see him at third asking. And number 7, Speediness, also a Maryland bred, a homebred for Jamie Ness. This one also by a Maryland stallion, Northview's Great Notion, has run 4 big races in his last 5 starts. Last time out, he got a real test because every time before the last time out in the Miracle Wood, when he was pressing the lead, he would back up, and when he had an easy lead, he would stay on. In the Miracle Wood, he got pressed on the early pace. Many observers might have thought, oh man, he's kind of in trouble, but he kept on going, won by a length and a quarter, ran another big figure, has a good workout since then at Parks. Got to figure Jamie Rodriguez is going to send him to the early lead. The horse is absolutely loaded. His pedigree, his line is all mares bred by Robert Meyer Hawk, including a bevy of 2-turn grade stakes winners. So I don't think distance is going to be a problem. I think as long as he breaks well and gets to the front, he'll be a tough customer on the early lead.
The 2 keys to the race, Mike, are the 2 horses that John mentioned. They're the most accomplished horses in the field, Copper Tax and Speediness. But there are questions handicappers have to ask whether you want to take these horses at short prices. One, can Copper Tax run anymore? Yes, he had an excuse in the Remsen. It was a wet track. He was wide. He was steadied a little bit on the turn. After that race, Gary Capuano sent him to the farm. He wanted to run him in the Spectacular Bid. The weather wouldn't cooperate. He decided to go to the Sam F. Davis, as John mentioned. Gary told me that he breezed this horse down the track the Wednesday before the Tampa Bay Derby and was Sam F. Davis, and was stunned that the horse didn't handle the track at all. And then when he didn't pick up his feet, he said he just thinks the horse hated the track. He wanted to run him in the Miracle Wood. He decided he's a little bit of a light horse. He wanted to give him one more try now in the private terms, going 2 turns. So here he is. But it just seems like nothing's going right. This horse is won on a wet track. I was talking to Gary today. He's not happy that the track's going to be wet again on Saturday. We'll see how it works for Copper Tax. Was he one of those early 2-year-olds, and have they caught up with him? As for Speediness, who I think is the horse to beat, he has been a big surprise for Ness, who thought this horse was going to be a sprinter. He's won all of his 1-turn mile races. John's absolutely right. He overcame a lot of pace pressure last time out, but this is going to be his first start going 2 turns, and I just wonder if someone's going to try to put the heat on him this time around. A horse like Point Doom just might try to break and make this horse run going into the first turn. Can he sit and finish? That's a question as well. Of the 2, I prefer Speediness. I think Speed Runner is a horse you have to consider for Todd Pletcher coming down from New York. This horse last ran in a graded stakes race, and the trip just didn't work out for him. He moved up along the inside at the half-mile pole, and just when it looked like he was starting to run, he steadied and was shuffled all the way back to last. Against those kind of horses, he can't give up that sort of ground and win. He's getting class relief here. If Point Doom or someone puts pace pressure on Speediness, this pace will be hot. And while horses like Speediness and Inveigled, we don't know how far they want to go, I know this horse wants to go 2 turns.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you if you didn't bring him up. I was going to, because every single time Pletcher places a horse that's kind of outside of his norm, it always, to me, like he's so calculated, right? With that kind of stuff, you got to pay, to me, you got to pay attention. So, and we know that he probably doesn't have the most Preakness starts out there out of any trainer. So it's not really his thing. So when I saw his name on there, I thought the exact same thing. I was like, man, that's something you got to pay attention to. And then not only that, but him getting Sheldon Russell, who obviously knows the track. I mean,
yeah, I just wonder, Mike, if Todd realizes that this horse really isn't a Triple Crown horse. He's kind of green. He's still learning. He doesn't have a lot of early speed. And maybe, the path of least resistance so that he gets to a summer campaign will be okay for a horse like this. He reminds me a little bit of a poor man's Tapit Trice. You remember him last year?
Oh, yeah.
He had some really big races, but boy, was he a goofball. He had to, if he could be stopped in races sometimes, he showed no speed. And I think this horse is kind of like that. I'm not sure if he has that kind of ability. Very immature, but I think that's why Todd's running him here instead of really throw him to the wolves again in a major 100-point prep.
I like it. All right. Well, then let's move on to our last race of the day. We're gonna finish the pick 4 sequence with a $23,000 maiden claiming race. Louis' favorite thing to do. 6 furlongs on the dirt. So maiden claiming race. Who do we like here? Who's gonna finally break away from the pack and get a win?
I got number 1, Cole's Magnolia on top. Ran really well on a wet track, 2 starts back. At second asking, battled on the pace the whole way, ended up losing by just 3 parts of a length with an improved figure. I think she tried to go a little bit too far last time out. It was at a mile and a 16th, set the pace while under pressure, held on and finished third in what was, relatively speaking, a solid bottom level maiden claimer. The first and second place horse in that field finished second and third in same race in the prior start, and the winner is back at Laurel tomorrow. So we'll see how she does. I think this one is going to benefit from having the rail and cutting back in distance.
I can't argue anything with that. I think this horse is a very, very strong contender off a game effort last time out. 2 horses that I want to look at, though. How much money am I going to continue to lose on Peach's Sweet Notion? Well, we'll find out on Saturday because I'll lose again. Peach's Sweet Notion is the kind of horse that has some back races that make him competitive against this field. And I like the fact that she's got a little bit of early speed where maybe she can sit off of Cole's Magnolia and they can sort of turn it into a match race turning for home. I'm not willing to completely give up on this horse. She's shown me some hints in the past that she can run a little bit. I'm interested in Ria Formosa also at a big price. This is a horse coming off of a lengthy layoff with a new barn, moving from synthetic, and I've been following her for a while. She's had some tough trips in her races where she breaks slow and she makes big mid moves and then she falters. Maybe she's using this as a prep for the Presque Isle season in the spring and the summer, but it's not like she catches a great field, and she's going to be double-digit odds for low-profile connection. So you might want to throw her in there at a price. I guess Final Jump is the horse to beat, and I like the fact that John and I are going to try to beat her at a short price.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask about that. I mean, 6-5 morning line odds, and didn't really seem like either one of you all were too high on that. What do you not like about Final Jump?
Well, first of all, I will say that while I think she'll be the favorite morning line maker at Laurel Bryan, very sharp handicapper. However, I do think he sometimes overvalues horses on the morning line. I've seen many horses who he's sent off at 6-5 or 7-5 from the morning line and going off at like 5-2 or 3-1, which is not the case at most tracks. So even though she's 6-5 on the morning line, take that
with a grain of salt.
Yeah. That being said, no, she has a shot. She's dropping in class, ran some big figures going shorter last time out. Tried to go, I think, a little bit too far last time. Got it caught up in an early speed duel going a mile and ended up well beaten. Now goes back 6 furlongs, which I think is a bit more her speed. That being said, she's not as lightly raced as some of the others in here. I always prefer horses in bottom level maiden races who have had generally about 2, 3, 4 starts under their belt. I think is about that sweet spot. She's had 6, and even though I don't think she'll be 6-5, I think she'll still be favored. And in these kind of races, I am also inclined to beat the favorite if I can.
Absolutely.
Yeah, on the class drop, she's a very logical contender, but because she doesn't have to be extra heat to beat this field, she just has to be a living, breathing, sturdy member of the thoroughbred family. And she should be a living, breathing, sturdy member of the thoroughbred family. But as John astutely said, she's going to be a short price, and she's coming into this race off a subpar effort. Although the horse that beat her last time out, if she ran against this field, she would be barred from the wagering.
There you go. All right. Well, it should be a good day out there. And anything you want to pub about it, John? Anything else you want to add about the day out on Saturday besides bring an umbrella?
Yeah, bring an umbrella, bring any waterproof sneakers. You can follow me on Twitter. My personal account's @themoff for all the news in Maryland, Bread World. Follow us at MarylandTB. Go to MarylandVoice.com/library. If you're in the area, see what's going on at the Maryland Voice Library and Education Center. And also, if you're in the area, the Renaissance Champion Awards are coming up on Wednesday, April 17th. Tickets are now on sale, and you'll get to see both me and Dan there. So if you live in Maryland, or if you're going to be in Maryland on that Wednesday night, swing by, go to MarylandThoroughbred.com to learn more.
What is the rain gear of choice?
I have a raincoat, like a North Face style windbreaker I usually wear. It gets the job done. I had a big Tampa Bay Downs umbrella that I think I misplaced somewhere along the way.
Umbrellas allowed in Pimlico or in Laurel?
Does it rain a lot at Laurel?
I don't think you can bring an umbrella into Churchill Downs. I don't think you're allowed to.
You're allowed at Laurel.
Yeah.
Laurel's a free for all. It's free admission, free parking. It's whatever you want to do.
Goes. Yeah.
Yeah. And what else? Yes. And I have a pair of waterproof sneakers. And I'm actually not going to be at Laurel on Saturday. I'm going up to New York City this weekend. Okay. And I was up there 2 Saturdays ago as well. And it poured all night. I did not bring my waterproof shoes, and they got just beyond soaking wet. The point where I had to put them in my dryer to get them wearable again. So I have made a note to myself, because it's going to rain again this weekend. Bring the waterproof shoes. That way, like when you're crossing the street, you don't step on a puddle and get frostbite, because you'll be soaked for hours.
Lose a toe or two.
But anyway.
Illman, do you have I have a feeling I know what your favorite rain gear is.
Oh, what would that be, Mike? I'm going to walk into this.
The press box.
That's right. The press box is at my stage in my career. I don't feel like I should have to get wet, or I should have someone carry an umbrella for me.
You all know EJ Clark?
Yes. Yes.
So EJ, man, even at this is going to be his last Derby covering the Derby, and he's basically who helped me get my start. But man, and I would always go, and we would go on the radio as soon as the Derby was over, and he would try to go get sound. And of course, half of them are just muddy messes, and it's like, man, EJ, it's like, you've been doing this for 50 years. Like, go find a young buck to go do this thing, man. It's But I would go with the press box would be my best rain gear. I'm a Frog Tog guy, just for how cheap and disposable they are, but they still get the job done. I don't know if you've ever done the Frog Togs. And the Gore-Tex shoes are a must, though, for sure.
You can't go wrong with Gore-Tex. It's
George Costanza's favorite.
That's George Costanza's favorite.
There it is.
I'll be there with the umbrella, interviewing the winners and losers of these 2 major stakes races on the road to the Preakness.
There it is. And you can follow, of course, Dan Illman. Dan, go ahead and give your Twitter handle there.
At @DRF_Dan Illman. Head on over to the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Stakes previews, coast-to-coast racing coverage all week long. Louisiana Derby, Jeff Ruby Stakes, etc.
Do you do who does your video editing? You have someone on staff, or do you do it?
No, we have. This is a professional organization. What do you mean?
DRS is a big deal, man. I understand that, but your videos are better than everyone else's.
We have an absolutely sensational lead producer. She does a wonderful job, and I could not give her enough credit.
All right. Well, she makes you look good, right? So,
well, that's the easy part.
All right, fellas. Well, thanks again for today, Louis. We missed you, but we survived without you. And he'll be back next week when we will be manscaping it up. And there it is. So this has been the Horse Racing Happy Hour.